These are the only pants I own, miss. I know that's not your problem. Wren Calloway looked up from her sewing table. The man standing in the doorway of the alterations shop was older, maybe 60, maybe more, with a canvas bag over one shoulder, and trousers so frayed at the hem they dragged the ground with every step. He held his cap in both hands, turning it slowly, the way people do when they're asking for something, and trying not to look like they are. Wren was 26. She ran the smallest alterations shop on Garland Street, one room, one machine, a curtain-fitting corner, and a handwritten sign in the window that said, "All repairs considered." She had written that sign herself, on purpose, because she knew what it felt like to be the kind of person other shops turned away. She had grown up in the Hargrove County group home. No parents, no inheritance, no connections, only a foster mother named Mrs. Delphine, who had pressed a needle and thread into Wren's 9-year-old hands and said, "This is something no one can take from you." Wren had believed her. She still did. "Sit down," Wren said to the man. "Let me see them." His name was Walter. He didn't offer a last name and she didn't ask. The hem on both legs needed resetting. Not a hard job, 20 minutes at most. She did it while he sat in a waiting chair by the window, quiet and still, watching the street outside with the patient eyes of someone who had learned to be comfortable with waiting. When she finished, she handed them back folded over her arm, the way she handed back every garment, with care, like it mattered. "What do I owe you?" Walter asked. "Nothing," Wren said. "Come back if the stitching loosens." He looked at her for a moment, not with surprise exactly, but with the particular attentiveness of someone filing something away. "You do good work," he said quietly. "Whoever taught you, they did right by you." Wren smiled. "She did," she said. "She really did." 3 weeks passed. The shop stayed small. Wren kept her hours, kept her sign, kept turning no one away. She hemmed curtains for an elderly neighbor who couldn't pay until Thursday. She repaired a child's recital dress at 7 in the morning before school drop-off. She did each job with the same unhurried attention, as if every garment carried something irreplaceable inside it. Because in her experience, it usually did. Then a woman came in. She was polished, purposeful, mid-30s, wearing the kind of quietly expensive coat that doesn't announce itself. She introduced herself as Margot Finch, and she said she was looking for a seamstress for a short-term contract. Sample garments for an upcoming presentation. The pay was fair. The timeline was tight, but manageable. Wren took the contract. She worked 6 days straight, carefully, without cutting corners. The sample pieces she returned were cleaner and more precise than the specifications had asked for. Not because she was trying to impress anyone, but because that was simply how she worked. Margot returned them to her employer without comment, as samples do, absorbed into a larger process, the maker invisible. What Wren did not know was where those samples went. Margot Finch was the head of production at Aldrich Voss Atelier, one of the most quietly influential couture houses in the country, run by a 33-year-old named Stellan Voss, who had inherited his grandmother's label and spent a decade rebuilding it from a legacy name into something genuinely alive. Stellan was precise, exacting, and had a reputation for noticing things other people missed, the quality of a buttonhole, the evenness of a hand-finished seam. When he reviewed the samples, he stopped at one particular jacket. He turned it over. He examined the lining joint at the collar, a notoriously difficult detail that most contract seamstresses simplified. This one hadn't simplified it. This one had done it correctly, in a way that was almost old-fashioned in its rigor, and entirely, quietly beautiful. He asked Margot where it came from. She told him a small alterations shop on Garland Street. He drove there himself, without announcing himself, the following Saturday morning. He walked in, looked around at the one room and the one machine and the handwritten sign, and waited at the counter. Wren came in from the back with a pincushion on her wrist and thread between her teeth, and did not recognize him. She had no reason to. She didn't follow industry news. She followed her work. "Can I help you?" she asked, taking the thread from her teeth. "I think you already have," he said. "I'd like to talk if you have a few minutes." He showed her the jacket. He pointed to the collar lining. He asked her, simply and without preamble, how she had learned to do it that way. An old technique, Ren said. My foster mother showed me. Most people think it takes too long. It does take longer, Stellan said. That's the point. She looked at him carefully. There was something she was trying to read in his face. Not suspicion, just the natural caution of someone who had learned that good things, sometimes, came attached to conditions she couldn't afford. What is it you're actually asking, she said. He appreciated the directness. I'm asking if you'd be willing to consult on a collection. On site, for 6 weeks. Paid properly. No obligations after. She was quiet for a moment. I have clients here who depend on me. I know, he said. We'd work around your schedule for the first 2 weeks, while you transitioned. She looked at her shop. At the one machine, the curtained corner, the handwritten sign. I'll think about it, she said. He nodded, stood, and then paused at the door. The jacket, he said. Who taught you that specific finish? Her name was Mrs. Delphine, Red said softly. She passed 4 years ago. Stellan was quiet for a moment. Then she's in every stitch, he said. That's not nothing. Ren thought about it for 3 days. On the 4th morning, she called the number on his card. The 6 weeks stretched, naturally and without pressure, into a longer arrangement, not because anyone pushed, but because the work was real and the respect was mutual, and Ren's eye for construction turned out to be exactly what the atelier had been missing in its sampling process for years. On the opening night of the collection, held in a high-ceilinged gallery space with warm light and quiet music, 3 of the centerpiece garments carried finishing details that were entirely Ren's. Her name was in the program notes, small but present. She stood near the back of the room in a simple dress she had made herself, watching people move through the space, pausing at the garments, leaning close. A woman in a pale coat stopped at the 3rd piece and tilted her head, studying the collar. Ren watched her and thought of Mrs. Delphine, of a needle pressed into small hands. Of this is something no one can take from you. She had been right. She had always been right. Later that evening, Stellan found her near the door. How does it feel? He asked. She considered it honestly. Like something that started a long time ago, she said, just became visible. He nodded. That's usually how it works. She looked at him. There was a man, she said, Walter. He came into my shop a few months ago with torn trousers. I fixed them for nothing. She paused. I think about him sometimes. Whether that morning had anything to do with this one. Stellan was quiet. Do you think it did? She asked. I think, she said slowly, that every time you do the work properly, whether anyone sees it or not, it goes somewhere. You just don't always know where. He looked at her for a long moment. Mrs. Delphine taught you that too? He asked. Ren smiled. Every single day. A single careful stitch, made with kindness and no expectation of return, can hold more than fabric together. It can hold a life, and quietly, patiently, show it the way forward. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, subscribe, and comment. Let's spread more stories of kindness and hope together.